Hey guys, Bill from Angry Ginger Guitars here. Welcome to video 2 of the Spalted Maple Top Les Paul build. If you saw video 1, it's just an unboxing video, fairly simple. Just taking everything out that they sent me from Solo Music Gear, phenomenal kits and tools and other great things. But I got this from them and took out everything, showed you the wiring harnesses, the body, the neck, and things like that. Well, video 2, we're gonna get started here. And first thing to start on, the real bread and butter of the guitar, your neck. Your neck is basically what sets apart a great guitar from an amazing guitar. Whether or not those fret ends are sharp and making sure everything's level, the intonation is going to really depend heavily on a lot of what you do here. Same thing with that truss rod. So starting with this, what we're going to do is we're going to tape it all off. We're going to get it all looking and feeling fantastic. Get those fret ends nice and rounded. I've got some great tools for that. I'll show you everything I picked up. Get the frets filed down and even, make sure there's no low spots. And so, let's get going. All right, friends, to see what we're going to be using today, I'll show you all the tools that I recently picked up. I've kind of been nickel and diming it with a lot of different things. It's all worked out. I've had some successes, some failures. But with this build, this is a bit of a dream guitar, so I really wanted to do this right to get the proper tools, to really get the neck right, to get the body right, to get the frets right. So you put a little bit of extra money into it, but I can use these tools now for anything that I do in the future, as well as my own guitars that I really love. First is just going to be your standard fret level here. This is your neck level. It's just make sure that this sucker is straight. We'll show you exactly how to use that in just a moment here. This is going to be used to sand down all of your frets. Again, we'll show you the process for that here in just a moment, but it's a nice, solid, sturdy sanding block that I can pull down the fretboard evenly and smoothly. Your fret rocker, pretty self-explanatory in the name. This is going to rock back and forth over your frets to show you where the low spots might be. And if there are indeed any low spots, some guitars might not have any. I'll start with this guy here. I got 2 files I picked up. This is your Fret Guru fret end treatment file. This thing is amazing. I've already played with it and used it a little bit on my daughter's guitar and on my acoustic, rounding out some sharp and frustrating fret edges, and it worked beautifully. I can't be happy enough with that. And the other is going to be your crowning file. 3 different crowning sets here for different size frets. This is going to make the whole process that much easier and that much smoother when I go to actually recrown those frets after I flatten the whole thing. So now you see the tools, you saw the neck we're going to be doing. Let's get her started by taping off the neck. Now, before I get too deep into the video here, I want to give a huge shout out to a good buddy of mine. Mr. Justin DiPaola provided the amazing music for this video. Hopefully we'll hear more of his stuff on future videos. Now, what you've got here, I'm putting a single long strip of masking tape down the side of the neck, right up to the fret edges, or to the edge of the binding. What this will do is protect your binding and the side of your neck if you don't have binding while you're working on those fret edges. Also helps with cleanup in the end. You can pull that one strip off and everything that's gone across the top of the neck will come right off with it. Well, sometimes it doesn't work perfectly when I do it, but you get the idea. For cleanup, it's pretty helpful. I know taping off a neck seems pretty simple to highlight, and it's about as tedious as it looks, yes. But I will say, it's a moment of zen when I'm doing it. It took me a little bit of time, but the payoff is beyond belief. So it's protecting that neck, all that wood, the binding from when you level it with your sanding block, from when you take care of those fret edges, when you polish it up. It's protecting that neck. You don't want to mess that up. Now when you get to the higher frets here, a little less room to work with, obviously. I'm using 3/4 inch masking tape, and it's still a little bit big for some. So you'll see I pull this one off here actually, because what I've done on some of the higher frets is I take it and fold it over and then tuck it under. This one, what I'm going to do, and you might want to do this yourself, it makes it a lot easier. You push it right to the fret edge, use an X-Acto knife, razor blade, or a utility knife, very lightly run it underneath the fret edge. You'll see what I'm doing here in a second. And it pulls right up, it makes it a nice clean cut, and then you can just tuck the excess under the sides as well. because that'd give you a little more extra protection. Oh, now that you've finished taping off your fretboard, it's time to move on to the only part of this that made my butt clench. Now, across the top of the frets, you're going to put a little bit of marker. I use Sharpie. It was a little bit easier for me. I put Sharpie right across just the tops of the frets. What you're going to be doing is when you sand this down and level this all out, you're going to be going until there's no more Sharpie on the tops of the frets. Now, here's the trick to this one. This is where you've got to be careful. Whether you use a sanding block like I'm using, whether you use a file, a fretboard is radiused. It has a curve to it. You don't want it to be flat, so you've got to respect that radius as you're running it down. Since mine's a little bit narrower, I can go left, middle, right, and just take care of that. Now, I do not proclaim to have the steadiest hands in the world, so my lines weren't perfectly straight. I did go back and correct a couple of, but you don't want to do this more than you absolutely have to. That's why you're going to see me checking this fairly frequently. You don't want to take too much material off the top of those frets. You want to do it as minimally as you can until there's no more Sharpie on the top of that fret. Apologies for kind of the herky-jerky video there. My phone started heating up and recording got a little iffy. Moving on now, we've leveled the frets. Now we're going to round off the ends and make it happy and playable. Now this neck wasn't too bad, but I did know the shape that I wanted of my frets to have a little bit more of a roll to them. Now the cool part of this Fret Guru fret dressing file that I got is it's a square file, but on two sides, on two of the corners, they're completely rounded. So that way while you're doing this motion that I'm doing here and rounding it off, the part that's resting on the neck itself is not digging into the neck. So that way, you don't have to worry quite as much. Now, I've got them taped off, so it wouldn't have been as big of a deal, but you can still gouge into the wood. Those rounded edges really prevent you from doing that. Now, I practiced this motion, obviously, as you can tell, on another guitar, my daughter's guitar as well as my acoustic, and I have a practice neck so I could get an idea of exactly how I wanted those frets to be. Just as when you're leveling off the tops of the frets, when you're doing this, you don't want to do it too much. You don't want to be unnecessary with it, otherwise you're taking off too much material and that string's going to slide off the end. But if you do have some sharp fret ends, it sticks out a little bit, there's burrs on there, you want to make sure you take care of those. You don't want those, it's not going to make playing very fun. And you can really shape the fret edges exactly how you want to. This tool was an absolute godsend for that. Now that I finished off the fret ends here, I'm moving on to polishing using Rosette 3M polishing strips. These things are fantastic. You get 4 strips. I cut them into smaller pieces, but you get 4 each, a varying grade of the grit is different. It's a little bit heavier on some, lighter on others, so that way, depending on how bad your frets are, you can work your way through them. I started on the second heaviest and then worked down to the lightest, and what it does, it literally, you don't need any liquids, you don't need any pastes, just run this over there. I put a little more elbow grease into it than I probably needed to, but I wanted to make sure that these things had a mirror shine on them. You want it that way too, because you want as little friction as possible on your neck, on your frets. It makes the frets last longer, makes the strings last longer. It's just that much better for playing. It's a lot smoother, a little bit easier to go. Alright guys, here it is, the end result, the final product. Taking care of all the frets, they are level. The edges, should be able to see. Rounded them out, then did a little bit of polishing. The Rosette 3M claws are phenomenal. You just work down the grades and polish these guys up. Nice mirror-like shine. So, this neck is done. Next step, I've got to decide whether I'm going to do the body work first or glue it together first. Some people do it differently, but I'll figure out what I'm going to do, and then we'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys for watching this one. Have a good one.